What's up guys, it's Pliskin here, and I'm sure if you've been following me around, at least since the beginning of quarantine, you'll know that I started this series called the Survival Loadout series, where I take a situation and I try to figure out what would be the best weapon set, keeping in mind the weapon's performance, but also its weight. This got me thinking, what if I do a little spin-off episode where I take 3 of the playable snakes, Solid, Big Boss, and Venom Snake, and figure out which one of them has the best loadout just generally for any type of situation. Well, not any type. The 3 situations we're going to be keeping in mind are some of the harshest situations for guns. A hot, dusty desert, a harsh, cold, unforgiving tundra, or a wet, grimy maritime environment type of operation. So when we start evaluating the different guns that we're going to be looking here, those are going to be the environments that we're holding those guns up to. But before we can get to that point, we need to start talking about what exactly is going to be involved in the Snake's loadouts, because there's a lot of contention going around considering what iconic gun fits with which character. So let's classify that right now and then run through my justification for each of the Snake's weapons. So to serve as some sort of baseline for every Snake, we're going to be including in this loadout a sidearm, a signature rifle, including the weight of the ammo that would come along with it, including 3 grenades, and that will be what constitutes a loadout. It's a little simplified from what I usually do, like for Venom and Big Boss you'd normally account for knives. However, I want to keep this video clear, straight to the point, and really just talk about who has the better guns for a variety of scenarios. So with that in mind, let's continue. So first, let's go over what gun Solid Snake is going to be bringing in here. Now, when it came to his pistol, the easy choice that comes to mind is the SOCOM. However, I like to judge or assign these guns based upon which one the Snakes have appeared with using most. And when you think about it, technically if you include the original Metal Gears, the Beretta is Snake's signature gun, because he uses that in the original 2 Metal Gears, and then he uses it on the tanker mission of Metal Gear Solid 2. However, at the same time, the SOCOM appears in Metal Gear Solid 1, that's where it got its iconic status after all. After that, Solid Snake uses the USP-9 in Metal Gear Solid 2, however, at the beginning of the tanker, he does have the SOCOM, and then in Metal Gear Solid 4, you can unlock the SOCOM, so I'm going to give him the SOCOM as his given pistol, just because that's the most iconic and there's enough there to justify it. So that being said, the SOCOM has 12 rounds of 45 ACP, has an effective range of 50 meters, and comes in, including the suppressor and the tac laser, at a ridiculously heavy for a pistol, 5 pounds. What isn't really difficult to decide on is Solid Snake's rifle. Now, although there is an argument to be made how the M4 carbine is Solid Snake's go-to rifle, I'd argue the FAMAS, because it does show up in Metal Gear Solid 1 as, well, what it's become as the iconic Metal Gear rifle at this point. You think of a Metal Gear rifle, you think of the FAMAS G1 from Metal Gear Solid 1, and going by my rule of common appearances, it does also technically appear in Metal Gear Solid 2, although through a hack in the demo disc for the tanker mission. Anyways, the FAMAS G1 is essentially pretty similar to the FAMAS F1 in the sense that they both have the 25 round box magazines. However, the G1 differentiates itself from the F1 with better ergonomics in the sense that it has an improved trigger guard that's more spacious for winter environments, improved grips, and a slighter, sturdier build than the original F1, which was infamous for breaking apart when banged around too much. The G1 has an effective range of 450 meters. Like I said before, it holds 25 rounds, it has a 19.2 inch barrel, and comes around at 8 pounds. So in addition to that, there'll be 3 pounds worth of ammunition for both guns, and then 3.75 pounds, which roughly amounts to how much 3 grenades weigh. All of this added together comes out at 19.75 pounds. So while there was a little bit of contention giving Solid Snake his signature guns, it's going to be a lot easier with Big Boss. His handgun is easily his custom 1911. Now, his 1911 carries 8 rounds, has a range of 50 meters, and weighs around 2.4 pounds and is carrying, of course, 45 ACP. His standard rifle, now this might piss off some people, or confuse some people at the very least, is the M16A3. I know how in Peace Walker, when he's going around with his signature weapon, it says M16A1, however it's the A3. You can either trust me on that, or go and watch my history of the M4, or I forget what I titled it, why the M4 is so popular I think, where I explain why it's an M16A3. Anyways, going on, the M16A3 is 7.5 pounds, has a range of 550 meters, carries 30 rounds, and has a 20-inch barrel. Combine these two weapons together and this brings us to 10.1 pounds. Now if we add the same amount of weight that we did to Solid Snake in regards to ammo and grenades, Big Boss's loadout comes out at 16.8 pounds. Now this is the part where the video gets incredibly tricky because assigning Venom Snake weapons is always going to be an argument in some way or another because the guns in Metal Gear Solid 5 are fictional. So what I have to do right now for the sake of this video is figure out what those weapons would most closely translate to in real life. So let's start with the handgun. The handgun obviously takes after the CZ75 mashed together with the 1911. So either way it would be applicable. However, for this video, I'm going to give Venom Snake the CZ75 just to differentiate him a little more from Big Boss. Now that being said, the CZ75 is 2.5 pounds, has 25 meters of effective range, and carries 15 rounds of 9mm ammunition. In regards to Venom Snake's rifle, I would say it most closely resembles the FNC, although not really. You see, for Metal Gear Solid 5, Kojima wanted to give the ambiguous black rifle the same layout of an FAL, however combined the FAL and the M16 to make some sort of weird hybrid 5.56 carbine. So because of the fact that the inspiration is taken directly from the FAL, I feel like the rifle's iconography and application better suits the FNC. Because if you look at the MRS4, yes, it may have the paddle release and charging handle of the FAL, it still looks more like and is used more like an FNC. So because of that, I'm going to attribute this fictional MRS4 as translating into an FNC. If you disagree with me, just go ahead and let me know why in the comments. Now that we finally got that out of the way though, the FNC comes out at 8.2 pounds, has a 14.3-inch barrel, holds 30 rounds, and has an effective range of 400 meters. Now if we combine the weight of the FNC as well as the CZ75, we get 10.7 pounds. If we add the additional weight, just like we did with the other two snakes, this all comes out at 17.5 pounds. So if we're going by survival loadout logic, according to my series, if we're going to base the winner based off of weight, Big Boss would come out on top as he's almost a pound lighter than Venom Snake and almost 3 pounds lighter than Solid Snake. Venom Snake would come in second place, and Solid would come in dead last because his weapons are so damn heavy. However, this isn't survival loadout. Like I said, this is a bit of a spin-off, so let's go ahead and apply these 3 different loadouts to our 3 different locales and situations and see who would fare better in each, and then that, plus the consideration of Big Boss winning the weight game, we'll talk about who has the best loadout. So first up, who would fare better in a rocky, harsh, hot desert? Well, let's start with Solid Snake. While the bullpup configuration of the FAMAS would allow Solid Snake to take advantage of a 19.2-inch barrel to, deal with the large expanses of a desert environment and, maneuver around close spaces or sling it on his back, it's just easier to transport and carry with you. This is the FAMAS G1, not the full G2 yet. Now, the G1 is an improvement on the F1, however he might still come across issues if he bumps his FAMAS too harshly on a rock nearby and a part of it might break. As with the F1, a huge issue was the fact that the rifle was way too goddamn delicate. G1 is nowhere near as flimsy, however it hasn't been fully etched out like the G2 has. So the perks would essentially be the fact that Solid Snake has a really compact package that is still applicable to long-range shooting. However, he does need to be careful if he bumps the rifle into a rock, wall, or some hard surface. Also, the weight of the rifle might slow him down a little bit, but the bullpup configuration might help him out with that. In regards to his SOCOM pistol, that thing might be heavy as hell, but it'll run through anything. So besides the weight disadvantage, Solid Snake is pretty good, all things considered, in a desert environment. Now, in regards to what kind of a time Big Boss would have, the M16 is an extremely tested platform, especially in desert environments. Does this mean his M16 will never jam? No. Does it mean it's impervious to breaking like Solid Snake's FAMAS? No. However, as long as Big Boss takes care of his rifle, the rifle will take care of him. That 20-inch barrel will help him take care of those large expanses, although because it's not a bullpup rifle and is instead a standard configuration rifle, that it's a bit bulky and uncomfortable to handle in close quarters situations. So essentially, Big Boss is set as long as he takes care of his rifle for long range shooting, and because the rifle is relatively light, he doesn't have to worry too much about the weight slowing him down. The 1911, putting aside my hatred for that gun, honestly, in a dusty environment it should run fine as long as Big Boss maintains it, kind of the same deal as the M16. My only concern would be the lack of ammunition that Big Boss would have, and the fact that he'd have to rely on it pretty much in close quarters, as the M16 would be a little too unwieldy. So because he has a pistol that kicks so much with the 45 ACP and runs out of ammo too fast, Big Boss might be at a, feels so weird to say this, but based on his guns, Big Boss might be at a disadvantage when dealing with close quarters. Going on to Venom Snake now, his FNC is going to be a lot more maneuverable than Big Boss's M16, however it's going to be heavier. Also, it's not going to have Solid Snake's range capacity like Solid Snake would have with his FAMAS, because while the FNC is more compact, it's not a bullpup package, which means the rifle has to be shorter. The barrel has to be shorter if, you're going to get that compact package. Because of that, Venom's going to be at a disadvantage when it comes to large expanses. However, his FNC is tough, it's sturdy, it's durable, so he doesn't have to worry about taking care of it as much as Solid Snake or Big Boss would. Venom's CZ75 contains more ammunition than both the SOCOM and the 1911. And that's because Venom's rocking 9mm. Now, while this doesn't hit as hard as 45, you can fit more ammunition in there because it's a smaller round, and you can pelt more bullets out on target because there's a lot less recoil. Now, I don't see Venom Snake having to rely on his handgun as much as Big Boss would, because his rifle would still work in close quarters. However, if he does need to whip this out, it would be a dream to handle, and the CZ75 is one of the most reliable platforms on the planet in terms of pistols, so I don't see dust and rocks causing too many issues there. Moving on in the same order, in wet environments, Solid Snake isn't going to have much of an issue. While the FAMAS does have problems with being a little brittle, it doesn't have, there's no reported issues being around water or having water get in the system. The FAMAS should be able to work through that. Same with the SOCOM. The SOCOM is one of the most reliable pistols on the planet, so a little bit of water isn't going to take it down. So in regards to being in a wet and squishy environment, the only thing holding Solid Snake back here is the weight of his guns. Now, Big Boss is going to be straight up not having a good time. The M16 runs off of a direct impingement gas system, which involves an overall lighter recoil impulse and is really good at keeping out shit from getting into the gun. However, water is the one thing that really hampers the direct impingement system, because once water gets in, it kind of causes the rifle to kind of blow up in your face. So Big Boss would have to either put a lot of effort into keeping his M16 out of the water, which might not be possible, or risk having it blow up in his face. Now, while Big Boss's 1911 won't blow up in his face, it might choke on the water, jam up, and cause other types of issues. So in regards to dealing with the water, Big Boss is at a serious disadvantage. Now, going on to Venom Snake, his FNC is going to be able to run through water, no issue. The only weight would be swimming around with an FNC because it's a little bit heavier. CZ75, same thing. Like I said before, it's one of the most reliable platforms. It'll chew through water, no issues. And since he's lighter than Solid Snake, I'd say he probably has it the best out of both Solid Snake and Big Boss in this scenario. So in regards to water, Venom Snake is definitely up there. So moving on to a Tundra type scenario, let's start with Solid Snake. First off, he is up for the most comfortable experience, as both the FAMAS G1 and the SOCOM have in large trigger guards, which mean that you can wear your gloves, keep your hands warm, but still fit them into your gun and be able to fire them, reload them, no problem. So if anything, Solid Snake has a serious advantage here just because both of his weapons are adept at handling winter scenarios. In terms of like freezing, neither the FAMAS nor the SOCOM has a history of choking on ice or having parts that freeze. There might be an issue with the G1's plasticky pieces or the charging handle might get frozen in place and Solid Snake might break it while trying to like clear the ice. However, the SOCOM is not going to have any of those issues, so Solid Snake's pretty good here. Once again, Big Boss is going to run into some issues. While the M16 is going to run like a dream within the snow, if he leaves it with water on it overnight and parts of it freeze, while trying to clear jams similar to the FAMAS, the M16 might have parts that break off. His 1911 shouldn't have too many issues, but again, the freezing of like the metal parts might cause the gun to jam or become inoperable for a little while. Both of these situations spell death. Also, none of Big Boss's guns have winter trigger guards, meaning that if he's wearing gloves and protecting his hands properly, he's not going to be able to fit them in as comfortably and might have negligent discharges or might not be able to properly cycle the gun as the glove will actually stop the trigger from resetting. While Venom Snake is going to have similar issues with his CZ75, the FNFNC is not going to have any of these issues. This thing is a beast, freezing isn't going to be an issue, it does come with a winter trigger, so Venom will be able to rely on his rifle, which will make up for any mishaps with freezing or jamming or general discomfort with the trigger guard that he may come across with the CZ75. All things considered though, if there's going to be a winner for the Tundra scenario, I'd have to give it to Solid Snake just because both of his guns are really well off, although the FNC would definitely outshine the FAMAS in this situation. So now that we've gone over these different scenarios, talked about the weight and different strengths and weaknesses of these guns, who has the best loadout? Well, I'd have to say overall Venom Snake. He doesn't have the lightest loadout, but he also doesn't have a ridiculously heavy loadout. The CZ75 is an incredibly reliable gun that 9 out of 10 times will get you out of a bad pinch. The 9mm allows you to carry more ammo that's lighter and you'll be able to shoot, keep your shots on target. It's a comfortable gun. Yes, in the winter scenario, he might come across some issues. However, that FNC, there is not one scenario here where it will falter. However, for large expanses like in a desert, you might have some issues with range. In every other regard, that rifle is going to support you. Now, both the FAMAS and the M16 have their strengths and downfalls. The FNC is kind of a better balancing of both of these rifles. Now, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? This is one of those videos where there's definitely going to be a lot of people who have guns that they think are better. Maybe you think I gave Venom the wrong guns. Maybe you think that Solids is actually the best, or Big Boss's classic loadout just can't be beat. Tell me down below in the comments. I honestly, based on my knowledge with everything that I know, that I've experienced, and I've learned, I really think that Venom Snake has the winning formula here. But anyways, this has been Pliskin, having fun. I guess with this video, I was kind of doing an anti-survival loadout to show you that weight isn't the only thing that matters when it comes to guns. The actual gun's performance in different situations and environments also matters as well. Alright, that's all for me today. Over and out.